and the grass is still brown there, and the snow is melting. So it's beautiful to see all the flowers up and the leaves on the trees here. You live in a beautiful part of the world. Yeah.
And we came from Toronto, probably about 2 o'clock your time. When we left, was it 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock?
No, 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, yeah, BC time.
AM.
So AM, yes, 2 in the morning. And so we finally got here. So it was a long, long trip. And we're glad to be here because it's green here. And when we got up there, it was very dark and it was very rainy, like really, really rainy.
And I have a very good friend whose name is Bonnie, and she's here this evening, and she gave us the most beautiful surprise. And I'm going to tell you what it is. Or maybe, can anyone guess what would be the best surprise?
Flowers, yeah.
Flowers?
Agree.
No, much better than that.
Much better than that. So our friend Bonnie surprised us by bringing our daughter to come and see us here on the island. And she lives on the mainland in Chilliwack. And so Bonnie and McLean came and they surprised us over here in Duncan, BC. So it's been wonderful being here. So, yeah. Thank you, Bonnie, for surprising me for bringing our daughter.
Daughter, let everybody know who you are.
Yeah.
That's McLean.
She's right at the back there.
Yeah.
So the pressure's on now. You have your daughter here that you have to present in front of. 2 weekends ago, my mother showed up at our presentation, so
Yeah.
I was stressed last weekend. So now it's your turn to have a little pressure
Yeah,
for
that's right.
your daughter to be here.
So good to have you all here this evening. Is it evening even yet? I guess it is. Okay. So it's about 6:30. So good. Can we begin? Yeah, will it be okay? Okay, go. Okay, good. Well, let's start with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you that we can be here this evening, and you've you brought us through a week. Each of us have been through different experiences throughout this week, and I thank you for being with us. You have promised us that you will never leave us or forsake us, and you just hold up to your promises, and we thank you that we can be here this evening. We pray for your Holy Spirit to speak to us and speak through us and guide us. Put your angels here with us and dismiss the evil one from our presence, and help our hearts to come into tune with your heart and to experience the wholeness and the healing and the connections and your love that you want us to have within our families and within our marriages. In Jesus' name, amen. So the program we go through is called Prescription for Love. 6:30 we begin this evening. Just want to share this one with you. What happens in the home is at the heart of the message of God's end time church. So God's end time church, God's message has always been about love. His character is love. That is who God is. And really it's about connections of family. You know, God wants us to be family eternally. He always had that plan. And we are the children of God. So I love this. The restoration and uplifting of humanity begins where? In the home. So the restoration and uplifting of humanity begins in the home. In other words, if homes aren't right, you need more police officers. Right? And that's probably not the best way to get law and order. If you really want connections, if you want meaningful togetherness, you really want that to begin in the home, of course. So we want to share this verse with you. Let all that you do be done in love. Isn't that beautiful? To everything that you do be done in love. So what does that look like? What would it be like if everything you did was done in love? Every thought that you were thinking, every interaction, every word that you spoke with people, even interactions with strangers, let it be done in love. So how would you define that, and what would that look like? So think about that in your mind. How would that look like to you if everything that you did was done in love? Okay?
Look at this Bible verse in Colossians 4, verse 6. It reads, "Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person." So, here it's saying that our speech needs to be gracious and seasoned with salt. Tell me some benefits of salt. What does salt do?
It
Preserves.
preserves. Very good. What else does salt do? It adds flavor.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
You
it
don't want to have not enough salt, right? You want to have too much.
Especially not in bread, in fresh made bread without salt.
Yeah, that wouldn't be
Have
good.
you ever left salt out of the recipe when you've made bread? Just doesn't taste good.
Okay, what else? So taste, preservation. What else does salt do? It disinfects. Very good. Okay. So it's healing. Gets rid of the germs. What else does it do? There are actually like 80 some odd uses of salt, different uses of salt. What's the number one use of salt in Canada? That's right. That's the number one use of salt in Canada. It melts ice. What else does salt do? Do you know? It dehydrates. That's right. It absorbs the water. Any other thoughts? Ah, okay. It does. It does. And did you know that salt kills weeds? You can use that to kill weeds. And what? And slugs. That's right. Yeah. So now think about what would salt be compared to then as a character trait. Okay, I'll
I don't know. My wife's a little salty sometimes.
Is she a little salty sometimes? Okay. I'm glad my wife's not salty sometimes.
Yeah, she's sweet.
She's sweet. That's right. So, have you seen this picture before? What's that picture? Okay. Do you know who Judas is in this picture? He's the one who's knocking over the salt. So that one's not quite as clear. So there's salt shakers. I've actually seen this, some fake ones where they have, instead of salt coming out there, they have, it looks like wine spilling onto the table, but it's not in the original. So he's hitting the salt container over with his shoulder or with his elbow. And so that might be a little clearer, I don't know, but that's definitely not the original. So you get the picture of who he is. He knocked over the salt. So, what do you think salt would be if it preserves, it adds flavor, it it melts the ice, gets rid of weeds, disinfects? What character trait would it be? Purity, yes. It is. That's true. It does purify, but it does more than purify. Adds flavor. Okay, take a look at this quote. Okay, that's the first one. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt. Okay. So take a look at this. This one's from, can I click on to the next one?
This next quote is from Desire of Ages.
But it won't go, sir. There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
You are to abide among men, that the savor of the divine love may be as salt to preserve the world from corruption. So what is salt being compared to here? Love, yes.
There you go. Love.
Being compared to love.
So think about what was Judas doing when he was or at least what was, who painted the Last Supper? Leonardo da Vinci. So what was he saying by having Judas knock over the salt? His view of God's love, of Jesus' love, he was just wasting it, right? And so it was a very subtle picture of his love, or comment on his love, or his relationship with Jesus. There you go. Okay, let's do this. Okay. We're going to talk about the masters versus the disasters.
So this weekend, you're going to learn that the masters, Mike and Renee, and what to do. And then we're the other side, we're the disasters. We're going to show you what not to do. So we've learned everything that you should do wrong, and we've done it and tried it, and now hopefully we can learn from the masters. And so these terms is Dr. John Gottman, and one of the books actually we're going to be giving away tonight, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. 40 years, he had a love lab in Seattle, Washington, and he over 3,000 couples. And in this love lab, they had, what did they have? They had heart monitors, they did blood pressure, they did video analysis, they did interviews.
Yeah, did blood work, urine samples. They studied the expression on your face and your tone of voice and the words that you said during conflict.
It was on a weekend stay at an apartment. And
Can
they
you
had,
imagine being one of those couples and you volunteer to be watched and studied? But they discovered that there are 7 principles that every master of relationships do. So we're going to share some of those with you this weekend. And tonight is one of those principles. But let's share with you what the masters look like.
Okay. So the difference between masters and the disasters? Go ahead.
Yeah, the masters, they focus on shining the light on what's right, and they look for things to appreciate in each other.
and then the disasters, we focus on what's fixing what is wrong.
We
Looking for
did.
the others' mistakes. My wife, man, she makes so many mistakes and she does so much things wrong. So
If you'd only look at your own life, you'd see how imperfect you are.
yeah, take the plank out of your eye first, okay?
Well, let's take the speck out of yours. No. You
But
can
we
see what a
tend-
disaster is like. We were in this role for many years.
Yeah, sometimes when we first get married and you're in that honeymoon stage, everything is so good. You don't see any of the love is blind.
Oh, you're so perfect, honey.
Oh,
God
thank
sent
you.
me the
Thank
perfect
you.
man.
You're the perfect woman. Wow,
Yeah.
you're amazing. And that was the first year, first 2. And then what happens? You live with a person for a while and you see all their annoying faults and all their idiosyncrasies and all those habits that drive you nuts.
Would you just stop it?
So, yeah, we started to focus on all the things that irritate us and that we, what's wrong with you, right? And then we started doing that with our kids too. What's wrong with you? Can't you do anything right? We start getting this negative perspective and we start doing the focusing on is wrong.
Do you ever get to the place where you fix everything? Well, you just can't get there because there's always something new to fix. And so if you're always focusing on what's to fix, well, last week we had an audit at our offices at Enrich in Canada. And so I was moved out of my office. You know what an audit is? They look for what? That's right. They look for mistakes. So one auditor who actually, he made the mistake. And that was his mistake. He was so good at looking for mistakes. So he thought his wife would appreciate it because that's what he got paid to do. And so he looked for, he made a nice Excel spreadsheet with 3 pages, single-spaced, of all of her mistakes. And he took a long time to do this. And when he presented it to her, he did it in love. And he thought that that would help her and it would help their relationship.
What do you think, ladies?
That one went really well, didn't it?
Yeah, what do you think, men? Is that a good idea?
That's a great idea. I mean, at least she knows what to work on, right? And so it didn't work really well, okay? Their marriage, unfortunately, ended up in divorce. And so this is what a disaster does. And it's a disaster for us. It's a disaster for me to focus on all of my mistakes. It's wrong because when you think about that all the time, you can never grow and you don't see yourself for who you are. And so when you see yourself for who you are and that God created in you, he loves you and you're a child of God, it changes your perspective. It should, because 9/10 of all illness originates where? In the mind, right? People die, according to the book Ministry of Healing. People die from diseases, the cause of which is entirely imaginary. So we think ourselves to sickness. We think ourselves into negative perspective. So let's take a look at that negative perspective. So, and how does that work? So we came to the end of one of these weekends, and this husband, he got in the car, and he was ready to, go home, and his wife asked him a question.
So, love, what did you think of the marriage seminar we just attended?
Well, I learned that you're very critical.
What do you mean, critical?
Well, I was just thinking, if you were to die, I don't know if I could live without you. You're very critical to my existence.
Good recovery, Mike.
Yeah, but do you understand that sometimes you can say something and you mean it a certain way and the other person takes it another way? What if she got upset with me when I said, you're very critical? Do you think the conversation would have gotten any further? Do you think she would have understood what I was actually saying? No. Oh, okay. So sometimes what we say and the way we think and the way we see the other person, we can get into what's called a negative perspective. And that negative perspective is a negative perspective override. It overrides everything. So even if you said something good, it would be negative. So there's the power in the words, and the words come, of course, from your thoughts. So it's the overflow of the heart. So sometimes we speak in code, okay?
So when a woman says, I have nothing to wear, she means she has nothing new to wear. Right, ladies? Yeah.
Yes, but when a man says, I have nothing to wear, he means that he has nothing clean, okay? So the same words, exact same words. So your perspective on the other person is, can be tainted by the way you understand what you're saying. And when you say that sentence, it means something different than what the other person says and the way in which they say it. So, do the words that a married couple speak to each other affect the happiness of their marriage? Yes, of course they do. And how you understand those words.
So on the basis of a 50-minute conversation, researchers could predict with 91% accuracy whether a couple would be married or divorced within 10 years.
That's high accuracy.
That's very high. Just on a 15-minute conversation.
But now, what was more important than the 15 minutes was the first 3 minutes. So 96% of the time, you can predict the outcome of the conversation based on the first 3 minutes of the 15-minute interaction. So this evening, we want to focus on those first 3 minutes because those first 3 minutes are the key. And that's where you have to practice. You have to practice love in those first 3 minutes. And you're looking at me and you're thinking, that can't be too hard.
But what if I don't love?
What if I don't love? That's
What do you mean, what if you don't love?
I love you, honey. It's okay. But I'm just saying, what if there's somebody maybe I have a hard time loving? Do I have to pay attention to those first 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You can actually change yourself. You can change yourself by the words you speak. Because, in the Bible, it says that your tongue is like the rudder of a ship. So the ship's rudder is very small, right? But does it steer the direction of the ship? Yes. So the words you say, oh, your thoughts will steer your speech, which is true, but your speech will also stir or change the direction of your thoughts and your heart. You can talk yourself in a good direction, okay? So a harsh load of negatively powered words will simply doom you to failure. And so what we're talking about here is those first words. We don't want them to be harsh. We want them to be gentle. So the difference between the masters and the disasters is that the masters are gentle. That's the key word, gentle. So when they get into a conflict situation, the conflict will be like a soccer ball that they gently kick between them. And so I'll kick it over to Renee and she'll kick it back to me. And that's the argument. That's the conflict. That's the difficulty. But with the disasters, their partner is the soccer ball. Do you get the difference? So instead of kicking around the problem, you're kicking each other around. And when you turn on your partner, well, then you get into this thing called negative sentiment override. And negative sentiment override means that the negative feelings are so great that they overpower any positivity. So what does that look like, love? So say I said to my wife, "You look so lovely this evening. I really like your hair. Oh, I love the way that you're dressed this evening. Oh, and you smell nice too."
What do you want?
So even though I say all these positive things, how is it taken? Negatively. That's negative sentiment override. So it's sort of like you're in a batting cage, you know, and the ball comes at you, and every time it comes to you, you hit it. Bah, bah, bah. So every time someone says something to you, you just come back at them, bah, right? The same thing over and over. There's no trust. There's no good feelings towards each other. You just automatically knee-jerk response, right? You say something, it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's something nice, you just don't see it well because there's negative sentiment override. So we want to change that.
I used to bring my wife flowers from work,
Yeah?
and she would throw them in the garbage. Can you believe that?
That's horrible.
Isn't that horrible, Mike? Yeah, thanks.
It's not horrible. You need to be
I probably-
intentional. Go out and
It wasn't
buy me
inten-
some flowers.
They were free from work, Thrifty Foods. They had extra ones. Like what? I thought of you.
What do you
when I
think,
was-
ladies?
Hey, don't be agreeing with her. Come on. Man, what do you think? They're free. I mean, it's a good deal, right?
I think it's a very good deal.
See, I
That's
got one guy
awesome.
helping me out.
I mean,
So when we were in a very negative perspective in our relationship, and you'll hear a little bit about our story tomorrow, anything that Marlon did was, even though it was good, I viewed it as bad. So I couldn't see anything good, that his intentions were good, what he, everything was just bad. So the flowers he'd bring home, I'd ask, okay, where'd you get those? Right? The investigator. Or if he would say something nice and kind to me, I'd say, just like Renee, what do you want? You know? So I could see nothing good in our relationship, and I didn't see him as that good person.
It's like an emotional bank account they
Yep.
talk about, and it's
Yeah.
after you withdraw so many times and you get into that negative bank account, you get in so far in debt that you just, until you can learn to make deposits and make more deposits, and we're going to get into the ratios I think tomorrow, but we need to grow that emotional bank account so that we can restore it and you can be in that positive perspective, which we'll talk about tomorrow.
I think it's fascinating how you can take something that's broken. So I was reading a book on the way here, and this is a horrific story. This guy, it was during the Second World War, and so it was in a Nazi concentration camp, and so they found out that this man was an artist, and they found out how he painted, and they cut off his right arm. They cut off his right arm because he was a painter. And he said to himself, that's all right, I have a left arm. And he focused on teaching himself how to paint with his left arm. And after the war, he went back to his profession, and they say he even painted better. His whole perspective was like, he wasn't thinking in this negative sentiment override. He wasn't thinking like a disaster. He was thinking like, what? A master. So you don't focus on what's wrong, you focus on what's right. And so you see people who have so much talent and so much ability, and they've got everything going for them, and they take their life. And you're saying, what is it? And they leave a note behind, and they say things like, I was useless, I wasn't worth anything. And everyone thought, whoa, you had everything. So how come you can have a person who seems to have lost it all? They're poor, they're down, but everyone loves them Because what is their perspective? How are they looking at things? Now, here's what the difference is with the masters. This is the biggest thing.
So the determining factor for happiness of marriage for both men and women was the quality of the couple's friendship. So what's the key word there? The quality of the couple's friendship. So this is super important to build a quality friendship. And we're going to be walking you through a few of those principles of if you know of somebody who's rebuilding their relationship. You might be rebuilding a relationship with a child, maybe with a parent, with a friend, with a spouse. All of these principles that we're talking about this weekend, they work for all relationships. So learning what the quality of relationship looks like is so important. And that's what we do when we coach couples, is we get them to determine, okay, what qualities are you looking for in this relationship, and understanding what that looks like.
And the technical term for a strong marital friendship is positive sentiment override, which means that their positive thoughts about each other are so pervasive. That they're pervasive, that they tend to supersede their negative feelings. You know, this is where in our relationship we'll share tomorrow is that, you know, we talk about not only the power of words, but the power of thoughts. And we have the ability to choose how we think about somebody.
Yes.
And when I was thinking about my wife in a negative perspective and everything that she did wrong, and all the things she did to irritate me, but when I was able to start looking at her through God's eyes, through his lenses, to see her heart. We look at the outward appearance, and sometimes there can be some prickly stuff on the outward appearance, right? Like a porcupine.
Really prickly. Yes, I was quite prickly.
So when we start focusing on that, but if we can change our thoughts and start to see the way God sees us and the way God sees her, and start seeing all the good in her heart and all the things that are wonderful, all those amazing characteristics and qualities. When I started changing my thoughts, I started to change my heart. And it started to change my words and the way I spoke to her and the way I talked to her.
We often do this with our children. If any of you have children, what do? We look at what they're doing wrong and correcting it, rather than looking at what they're doing right, which would be the positive perspective. So it's so common within families to constantly be seeing the wrong rather than seeing the right. So what do masters of relationships do? They shine the spotlight on what people in their lives are doing right. And when we do that, it changes us and it changes the other person. Because especially with children, have you ever noticed with children, if you focus on what they do right, it changes them. It changes their mindset and how they see the world as well. And it helps them with their self-worth. Whereas if we're always seeing and pointing out what everybody's doing wrong, how does that affect their self-worth and who they are? They start to develop this scenario of, I can't do anything right. And then they are sad, and then they can be depressed. And so as parents or grandparents or friends of these children, we can be that positive perspective in their life and shine the light on what they're doing right.
Just a quick example with my daughter. We just actually repaired an old wound from many years. She's now 21. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had the opportunity to have this conversation. And when she was growing up, when she was very little, I think she was about maybe 6 or 7, she had asked to play the violin. She said, you know, has happened that talk, Dad, I want to talk to you. And when she told me she wanted to play the violin, I was like, the violin? That's the one instrument I cannot stand. I don't like the violin. I don't like classical music. So she asked to play the violin. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll look into it. And the next day I got home from work. He's like, Dad, did you call? Did you find out about playing violin, where I get lessons? Well, I said I'd look into it. I didn't mean like tomorrow. I meant like maybe the next month or two, right? Anyways, we found a violin teacher. She started playing, but I didn't like the sound of somebody practicing to learn to play the violin. So I asked her not to practice around me. I said, oh, that sounds terrible. Can you go practice maybe outside or downstairs and lock the door so Daddy doesn't have to hear you, kind of thing? And I didn't realize and that negative perspective, focusing what was wrong, how she was playing, she wasn't sounding good, I didn't realize how much I had hurt her heart and how she is able to share that with me. And we had a conversation. And you know what? She stopped playing the violin because of me. Isn't that horrible? Oh, man. Thankfully, we had an amazing conversation, and there's a lot of healing. So it doesn't matter how old, and what if it's a relationship between a husband and wife or between a parent, child, or a friend. God is in the business of healing the brokenhearted and setting the captive free. We can bring these healings, right? And again, it's that focusing on what is right and encouraging them what they're doing instead of focusing on the negative.
So we're going to talk about that a bit this evening, about how to have those conversations like you had with your daughter, where you can, it's confronting and being honest, but also not attacking. So how do you do that? Yeah. You wanted to say something?
I also wanted to say that the principles that we're going to be sharing with you this weekend is not just for married couples, between spouses. It's for relationships with your children, with your siblings, with your friends, with church members. And so it's really the principles of all relationships and not necessarily just for married couples. So.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the key components of friendship. What are those key components of friendship? So it says there, into me, you see, intimacy. So intimacy is not just about sexual intimacy. It's about getting to know you. How do I get to know you? Well, who allows you to get to know me? Me. And I have to trust you. So here are the three components. The number one is I know you. And we talk about making love maps, and we'll talk about that quite a bit this weekend. I love you, and that's nurturing fondness and admiration. And the third thing is I'm here for you, turning towards each other instead of turning away or turning against each other. So what are those three key components of friendship? Say them with me. I know you, I love you, and I'm here for you. Okay, let's try that again. The three key components of friendship are, very good, I love you, and I'm here for you. Okay, we'll kind of go over that quite a bit this weekend. Yes.
Yeah, we are going to go through those three key foundations a lot because they are foundations.
Yes.
And if you look in your binders, there is the very first sheet is the
Relationship house.
Sound relationship house. It looks like a house.
Looks like a house.
Yeah. And what's the first floor of the house? The love maps, which is getting to know each other. The second floor is nurturing fondness and admiration. So sharing that fondness and admiration with each other, which says to the people in your life that are important to you that I like you and I love you. And then the third floor is turning towards each other. And we're going to explain this a bit more, but it's essentially gives that foundation of I know that you are here for me, that you have my back.
So we're giving you some information, and then hopefully it'll lead to inspiration. But the most important is the application, okay? To actually live it. So we can give you the information. That's great. That's the trigger point. And then inspire you to go further, to actually apply this and to live it. And let's try some ideas. So how well do you know each other? And that's the first one. That's the I know you part. Are you changing? Are you a different person from the person you met when you first met each other? Of course. You're always changing. And because those changes are happening all the time, it's good to check in. It's actually good to have those conversations where you ask each other open-ended questions. So one of the little games we like to do when we're driving in the car is called the Love Maps game, where we'll ask each other open-ended questions. And sometimes, and those questions, you can get those free of charge. If you go online, you can look for Gottman card decks. Gottman card decks, and you can get them on Macs, you can get them on Google, whatever device that you have. Yes. And so those are free of charge, and you've got all kinds of questions in there. And usually when we're traveling in the car, we don't get past 1 or 2 questions at the most in a half an hour to an hour drive. And so you can talk about these questions, and they can go on and on and on. They're pretty, long questions. I mean, to answer, because you might learn something about each other. So we want to throw one of those questions up on the board there and see what you think of this question amongst yourself. So just ask each other this question and see how you answer it, and if you find out something new about each other. So how would you compare yourself as a parent to your own father or mother as a parent? How would you compare your parenting to your parents' parenting of you? Okay, go ahead and do that.
We're gonna give you a little example of how to do it and how not to do it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, honey, I haven't checked in with you lately. I know you have some new friends in your life, but who would be your best friend right now in your life?
Mike.
Mike?
Yeah. Why do you say it like that? Yeah,
I
Mike.
would have never guessed Mike.
Oh, why wouldn't you guess that?
I don't know. He's kind of interesting. When he comes over, he eats an awful lot of food.
So?
And
What's-
like,
He's very active.
okay.
Why are you so critical?
I don't know.
He's a good guy.
Okay. So that's not how to do it, right?
So
So-
their question was different from the one on the board. Their
Yes.
question was, who's my best friend right now? Okay.
So
yeah.
let's do a
So
redo of how to do it properly. Honey, I've just been thinking lately, I haven't really checked in with you because it seems like some of your friendships are changing. So who's your favorite friend right now, your best friend?
Yeah, Mike.
Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Tell me more about why Mike is your favorite friend right
I don't
now.
know, he's got a lot of wisdom, and then when we talk, we can be real with each other, and we don't have to pretend to be somebody else. We can just be real and have some really meaningful conversations and talk about God, and it's awesome.
Okay. I did not know that. So Mike is your best friend.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to find that out.
Hmm.
So you can see how I didn't put my own perspective and my own lens on it, right? I didn't say, that's not true, or I didn't say, why Mike, right? So I had followed up with an open-ended question. So I asked him who his favorite friend is, which is a closed-ended question. It's either like a yes or no question or just a one answer. So he said Mike. And then an open-ended question starts with what or how, or a phrase like tell me more or tell me why. So if I asked him, tell me why Mike's your favorite friend right now, could he answer yes or no? He couldn't. He'd have to give me more of an explanation. So that's how you know if you're asking an open-ended question. So remember, it starts with what or how, or tell me more. And then no criticism or judgment like I did the first time around. So let's talk about how you would compare yourself as a parent to your own mother or father. So you're going to ask that question to the person next to you, and then you're going to switch a minute later, and then you'll ask the question back. So you can just choose someone close to you, and then you're going to practice the open-ended question as a follow-up question.
Strong. I've never seen somebody that strong. I don't think slightly 1% off. Change the just that. I didn't have
Could you take a shorter shower next time, or could you let me shower first?
Feel like you're still gives you a bit longer. Would anyone like to share? Yeah, your discussion? Yeah, E.
My parent, they didn't talk with me while I was young, but I enjoy talking with my children nowadays. So that's biggest difference between my parent and myself. I really think it's very necessary to talk with my children, talk with my spouse. My parents, they didn't talk with each other much, but now I talk with my wife a lot. I know that communication is the key. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else want to share?
Did any of you learn anything new about each other from that discussion? No?
Hey,
Okay.
maybe McLean wants to share about her parents. Hey, McLean, yeah, how would you what would you do different than your parents, your mother or father? I would be interested to know that.
That's encouraging.
They truly are the masters.
Okay, so positive sentiment override. We just want to give this, put this before you as an important thing, because when we're talking about a harsh startup, we're going to give you an example of a harsh startup, but positive sentiment override is a buffer against irritability, emotional distance, and harsh words. And so we want to have that positive perspective to, when you see the best in someone, you bring out the best from them, right? And Jesus was a master at that. I mean, he sat with the woman at the well. Everyone in town had a very negative perspective override with the woman at the well. Isn't that right? But his view of her was so positive that it brought out the best in her and it transformed her life. So when you look for the best in each other, it brings out the best from each other. So, yeah. So Renee's going to give you an example of a harsh startup. I'll try not to get scared, okay? Because this may or may not have happened at some point in time in our marriage.
Absolutely did.
And then we'll have a good example of a gentle startup. Okay, go ahead.
These are based on the first 3 minutes, like the startups of those conversations. So here's a harsh startup. Michael, you always take such long showers.
Oh, I love long showers.
You make me so mad, and then I end up having to have a cold shower. You don't think of me, no, because the shower has to be long.
It does.
What is wrong with you? Why do you have to take such long showers? Always.
Mm-hmm.
You never think of me. Selfish. You're just selfish.
Okay. So, what did she do wrong? Let's put some of those words up on the board there and see if you. What kind of words did she use? Ah, there you go. And what was the word that came before that? No, but before the always. You always, right? So it's always, right? It's you always. What else did she say?
Well, what if it's true?
It actually is true. It is true.
We're trying to help you to see the best, okay? So, Christine, we're doing this. Okay, well, okay, we'll talk about that later, okay? So go ahead. So what else did we do? You always, what else was there? You never. What else? You're selfish. What else should she ask me? What's? Yeah, don't you like that question, right? What's wrong with you? I'll tell you, right? How many of you answer that question, right? Okay, I'll tell you what's wrong with me. So you got the you always, you never, what's wrong with you, right? You just don't care. You're so selfish. So the perspective when it's harsh is always on the other person, okay? So let's see what that would look like for a gentle startup. This is kind of the formula for a gentle startup.
Love, I really appreciate how cleanliness is very important to you.
It is, yes.
And when you put on that aftershave, oh man, do you ever smell good?
Do you like that?
I do.
Oh, I love it too.
But sometimes I feel so mad and so frustrated when I have to end up having a cold shower.
You have a cold shower?
Yeah, because
I don't have a cold shower.
So could you please just maybe shower a little bit shorter?
Oh yeah, of course.
Or let me shower first?
Yeah, you can go first. I don't mind a cold shower.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's great. So what does she do right that time?
Hot water tank.
You can do that. She complimented me. So she started off, take a look there. See how the difference is instead of you, it's she owned her own feelings. But when she did that, she wasn't attacking me. She was saying, I feel, and then she wasn't getting historical, right? So she wasn't digging up all the past. She was just sticking to that issue there about the shower. And then she was also saying hysterical, but I meant historical. Like, isn't that wonderful? Yeah. So that's good. She and it's not putting the other person down. So she's saying, and you can have these difficult conversations with people. It doesn't have to be husband or wife. It can be someone at work. It can be a friend, someone. And you can say, I really value our friendship, but I have to say that I was feeling angry when this happened. And then talk about the issue and say, I need to understand. I need to, right? So she says, I need you to understand that I'm getting a cold shower. Could you have a shower? So she gives me a suggestion of how she can get her way. So what you're doing is you're not avoiding the reality. So you're not being toxically positive, where you're smiling like maybe you ate too much, that kind of a smile, but you're not really feeling all that comfortable. But it's not that. It's you're saying it positively because you value the relationship and it's honest, but you also want to state how you feel. I feel this way. Not you make me. Does anyone make you feel mad? Does anyone make you mad?
Good question.
Does anyone make your life miserable? How you relate to it makes you miserable. Because people don't always treat you the way you want them to. Do they? Does life always work out the way you want it to? So if it doesn't work out always, are you going to be mad every single time things don't work out the way? And then it's everyone else's fault? You get what I'm saying? You have to own and tell yourself the truth, but you have to own your own feelings. The truth is, if anyone makes you miserable, it's you. The way you're relating to the situation. Yeah, but you don't understand what he does to me. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I understand. I understand that people don't always treat you as the way they should. But you have a choice how you're going to relate to it. You do have a choice with your feelings. And so you say, I feel about and I need. And that changes the perspective. So how we deal with these things is important. So this is difficult. So here's the I appreciate you and the shower and what I want. Okay, so we're going to give you an example and something to do. So you guys can walk us through this one. And this is a little bit of work that we can do together.
Okay, so this is your scenario that you're going to discuss and practice the I appreciate, I feel about what I need. So when your mother-in-law visits tonight, you plan to tell her how much it hurts you when she criticizes your parenting skills. You want your partner, who is very defensive when it comes to mom, to back you up. So you're going to have a conversation with somebody, if it might be the person behind you, next to you, and you're going to do this role play, and you're going to talk about this situation with that person, practicing I appreciate, I feel about what I need.
So let's take a look at what the harsh startup might look like. I can't stand it when your mother comes over. She, what? Always criticizes me, and you never take my side. That's a harsh startup. So now you try and give us a softened alternative. It doesn't have to be I appreciate. It could be I value, right? I really, I think that I understand how much you value your mother, and your mother did a great job with you. However you want to start this off, and then how you feel about what and what you need. Okay? So practice that.
It's a we problem, it's not a me problem. Relationship needs. That's great.
Okay. Can I ask for some volunteers? Anyone like to try this one? How would you do this one? This is not an uncommon situation, by the way. Anyone want to try it? My microphone? Okay. Anyone want to try? Yes, go ahead, William.
Well, first thing, I'm just glad we don't have our in-laws around.
Okay, you got the microphone. Give it a go. How did you handle it?
We would always look at the good things. I know the last year and a half, my dad was with us, and I adjusted to that situation because I was with my dad for the longest, many, many years. So it's like restarting the relationship and whatnot. And I didn't realize that it was such double of an effort for my wife because they've never been together in one home and whatnot. So, and it was too much for her, but she would always tell me at the end of the day that she would just focus on the good things, right? It's good for children that my dad was around, and they would have a good conversation. And I tried to step back and separate myself that he is my dad. So in what way I can back up my wife? I'm not saying, no, that's my dad. I'm not very defensive at all. I didn't put myself in a defensive mode. So I always see what my wife was seeing when I'm not at home so that I can support her.
Good. Thank you for sharing. So is that a good thing for William to take the side of his wife and not the side of his dad? What do you think? Who should you side with? Your partner. You should always side with your wife or your husband, right? That's a hard thing to do, isn't it, sometimes? Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? You guys have any thoughts?
Should we give an I appreciate, I feel, I need example about this? Okay. Or do you-
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Oh, honey, I really do appreciate your mom because she is the grandma of our grandchildren, of our kids. And I know she loves them dearly. But, sometimes I feel like when she comes to visit, she has a different way of parenting, and I feel like I'm not doing a good job or I'm not doing it right.
You do an amazing job, honey.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like maybe I need you to be on my side when she's here.
What does being
Yeah.
on your side look like?
Well, when she gets into that mode of saying how I should parent our kids,
She's just trying to be helpful.
yeah, I just need you to be not so silent and have my back at that moment. Yeah, so that's what I really need from you. I just need you to have my back and, kind of be on the same team as me.
Yeah, same team. Okay.
Yeah, rather than just being silent.
Okay, I can do that. Unfortunately, I'm not as smart as you. I didn't do so well, and I took my mom's side. You honor and respect your parents, right? And you don't want to sometimes offend your mom, or just like, honey, just don't worry about it. Just let
She'll
her.
be gone in a week.
Yeah,
It's
just
okay.
let her do what she wants, and just. So I did not support her, and I did not have her back, and it caused a lot of conflict in our relationship. It was one of our perpetual problems that we'll talk about tomorrow. So it's just one of those things that was a constant. And then when her mom would come and visit, so in-laws can be a very delicate situation in a relationship. But as we remember, leave and cleave, and this has to come first in the relationship. And then using these gentle startup. And actually, 2 weeks ago, when we were doing this live, this question came up, and my wife we did this question with my mom there, and she was able to talk to my mom.
I did it with
her
we
live.
did it
was
together
it's not
live.
rehearsed. And it turned out to be a very healing, very powerful moment. And that my mom could actually recognize, and that my wife could honor and respect her and use as gentle startup and still appreciate my mom for what she did do and how she did raise us, right? And that, she appreciates that she's a great grandmother and all these things she's trying. So the way these words we talked about at the very beginning, words are powerful, and we can use them to heal, or we can use them to destroy.
One thing I want to add to is I want to commend my wife because all the time that my dad was around, a year and a half, never did my dad had a clue that there were moments that my wife was like up to the boiling point. So she did
Right.
wonderful.
She kept it inside.
We have like a little bit of uptightness in the kitchen, for example, and when my dad shows up from his room, my wife would just switch like she's the best daughter-in-law, right? So I commend her for that because I can't do that.
Very nice.
Is it okay sometimes to, even though you're boiling inside, to put on a face and be the nicest you can be to other people? I think it's good sometimes. But then you do have to have your times where you do this difficult conversation. And these difficult conversations are honest, right? They're honest, but not tearing down. That's the hard part. Okay, let's try another one. So you wish that your partner would cook dinner or take you out. Okay, so what would a harsh startup look like?
You never take me anywhere, and I'm sick and tired of doing all the cooking.
Okay, that's pretty harsh, isn't it? So try this out. What would be an alternative soft startup? Okay, so I appreciate, I feel, about what, and I need. Go ahead.
I explore options with you. It feels like we're going around. I heard that freaking stuff. Maybe we try to go options. I'm trying to be. You think about move place all the time. Now we go. I like the but then it's still something that's not. You want more. Now they're not going to so restricted.
Can you speak up a little more? Your voice is so soft. Sure. You're facing this way to hear you. Pronouncing.
Pretend like it was like 12 years ago.
Okay. So, is there anyone who would like to share a softened startup with this scenario? Give it a try.
This is your chance, ladies, to ask your husband.
Does anyone have? Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Miriam.
Sweetie, sometimes I cook and I'm in the kitchen all day long. And sometimes I kind of get tired of it and I think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if you would just take me out and just say, hey, enough cooking for you. Come, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to treat you for dinner. Wouldn't that be nice if you did that?
I'd love that.
You heard it.
Yes. So we went over to John and Miriam's place, and I said, John, what have you learned? And he said 2 words. Yes, dear. Okay. So no, that's good. That's good. So how did she do that nicely? I feel, right? She was telling about her feelings, and this would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice? Yeah. So she had a solution. Okay. She was confronting a situation. She wanted to do it, but she did it in a gentle way. Anyone else? That one works really well. Okay. Not too difficult, but let's do a difficult one now. Okay. Not that those weren't difficult, but the money issue can be difficult. So you wish that the 2 of you could save more money. Any of you run into this one? So here's a harsh startup. You don't have a clue about how to manage money. Okay? Is that a harsh startup? That's pretty harsh. And that doesn't even take 3 minutes. That's like a few seconds to say that sentence. But when you start off that way, that's pretty harsh. So think about this. I know that this can be an emotional issue, but how do you have a softened alternative? Okay? So go ahead, practice this one.
Really appreciate that. You like to make our home comfortable, nice, and that you are careful how you spend money. However, sometimes I feel that maybe we need to be a little tighter with our money. Money is just the times that are now really difficult. I have this little house I'm trying to save up to do something on our property. It's just a little stressed. Maybe that dream won't happen. So I try to be a little conscious of sometimes maybe need to be a little tight. We still want to have fun. So I just need us to be a little bit more conscientious of how we spend the little extras. Not only do we think it's like a big thing. So how can we work together where you're feeling that's really Sure. Okay. Does anybody want to share a gentle startup? Okay, we're not going to share. Okay. We will share. Okay. Then because we don't want to get anybody divorced in here tonight. We want to bring couples together, not separate, right? We want to bring you together this weekend. So, honey, I really appreciate how you make our home look so beautiful and like to have nice things around the home. And you're a very good decorator. Sometimes I feel that maybe we spend a little bit too much money on some of these things that I guess I just feel that maybe we're saving up to build a home on our property, and I just feel that a little bit stress or pressure that we're spending more money than we can afford to right now. So what I really need is that we somehow work together where we can be on the same page, where maybe we could postpone some of these purchases until we purchase our home, get our home built, so that we can plan, and just because I just feel a little stressed. So I just want to know, what do you think? How can we work together to make sure that, I know you like to have fun and adventure and to make the house look beautiful, but how can we work together just so we can also save and make sure we can build our new home?
Okay, so you gave me some ideas of what that might look like, but can you expand on them?
Yes, thank you. Saved by the lady here. Yes, go ahead. Help me out.
If you're going to talk like that, you're right. You came across very insecure about how you were presenting the issue. Like, is that a good thing? Because I felt like you were dancing around, like worried
This,
that she might.
yes, I am. I am insecure. Yes, absolutely.
Is that
It's real.
okay? I mean, I'm just asking.
It's real because I am insecure. This is actually one of our perpetual problems. This is real. This is not rehearsed. This is real. I am nervous. I don't want to get a divorce. I want to go home. I want to go away from this weekend closer together, right? So this is a hot topic, and we just had an argument last week on this topic. So this is real. So it is okay for me. It's and I have you're gun shy, right? We've had some conversations where it's not went well. But praise God that we have these tools that we can be gentle, and we don't allow our emotions to dictate how we react and how we respond. We respond from the thoughts and from what in a calm. And if we do get flooded, like actually with this conversation just last week, I began to get flooded. So we're going to talk a little bit about flooding, where our heart rate goes above 95 to 100 beats per minute, and our cortisol or adrenaline goes up, and we go into fight-flight mode. And then we don't act rational. We don't talk rationally. And we start to say things we regret, or we say things that are hurtful, or we, like two little kids arguing on a playground. Well, you started it. We go back and forth. So these are real topics that we share, and these are, real live examples. And yeah, absolutely. Am I a little bit nervous talking about this topic? Because I don't want to hurt her, because I love her, and I don't want to, and I think, but at least we're having the conversation. Because I used to be an avoider. And I would avoid it. What happens when you avoid for a long? You sweep it under the carpet. You sweep it under the carpet. And you sweep it under the carpet. Eventually, you trip over the carpet because it gets so high. And it becomes a problem. And we talk about little things often. It's not those big things. We always say, okay, these big things, but it's those little things day after day, day after day. And if we don't have those, I think Mike mentioned earlier, if we don't have those conversations, eventually the negative perspective comes in, and one day we'll just blow. And we respond in negative perspective. We don't even know why, because all those little things that have built up, that are stored under buried underneath below the iceberg, naturally we start reacting. We're like, why did you even say that? Well, I don't know. Because I don't even know why I feel this way. So we really just wanted to share.
Yeah, so this is what a gentle startup would look like. And it might look like we're dancing. Did it look like he was kind of dancing and tiptoeing around it gently? Yeah, so I could tell that he was a little nervous to bring this up, but yet he was doing it in a gentle way. So I could have started to also flood and go, okay, he's tiptoeing around this, but I really know what he's getting at. He's upset because he thinks I'm spending so much money and blah, 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 right? But I chose to hear the gentleness in the conversation. Whereas years ago, my response would be, Give me a break. I'm the only one that spends the money. You're right, because I'm buying your groceries, I'm getting your toothpaste and your toothbrush, and I'm always the one spending your money. Absolutely, because we have to live. That's kind of how I would respond to him. So you tell me, take the budget, and you tell me what you want me to take out. And I would be really upset, right? Because I'm like, what do I take out of the budget? You know, the kids are growing. You need to buy new clothes once they're, 4 inches flood pants, right? We call them.
You could sew, right?
Yeah. I did sew their clothes, but yeah. So I would say to him in response, well, here, you take the budget and you tell me what you want to take out of it. And then I would just throw it back in his face, because I'm like, if you think I'm spending too much money, but all I'm doing is spending money on our basic needs. So it would really, this was a huge area of contention between us, because I was the one making the budget, but I felt like he didn't care to look at the budget and to see that I was actually, doing everything to the best of my ability. So I felt like he was criticizing something he shouldn't be. So finances is a really touchy area. So this last week, our daughter came home. She's 21 and our son is 23, and he's been with us for the winter getting his class 1. He just finished. And to celebrate, we went to this Nordic spa near Calgary as a family. I would
You don't
have
want to share
liked
this
to-
example.
I would have liked to have paid for all of them. But my husband said, okay, are you kids okay with paying your own way? $130 each.
They got birthday money. Like, what they can pay.
Yeah, so they got
Why should I pay for
$150
them?
from my grandparents. Would you guys want to use that money? And I'm thinking, this is a family event. You're inviting them to go. Let's pay for it.
I'm thinking $500.
It was actually 8. And then I made a bid. I said, we're making them pay for their day at the spa. Can we at least pay for their supper?
Okay, but no drinks.
He didn't even say okay.
No dessert.
Right? He didn't say okay. And I said, well, okay, so they pay for their drinks, we pay for their meat. Let's pay for something. This is a family outing. So this is kind of our bantering that happens in our relationship. But we know how to work through it, because we know this principle of I appreciate, I feel, I need. And if we can discuss it in this way and find out what's important to each other and what each other's needs are, we can collaborate and come together where we're both happy. Yeah, so it's so important to understand what the needs are. We don't get that far in our conversation. We'll just get upset and share maybe how we're feeling, but not actually discovering, okay, what are the needs? Once we hear the needs, what can we do? We're going to talk about it tomorrow. We can turn towards each other and we can act on that need, or we can turn away. So many times in finances, we would turn away from each other. And then I felt like he was turning against me at some point.
So conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. So you're going to have conflict, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow afternoon. But we don't have to have war. We can make love, not war, right?
That's right. So we still have conflict. Every relationship is going to continue to have these, we'll talk about tomorrow, perpetual problems that keep coming up. But how you dialogue about them is so key.
And it's how we look at it and how we think about conflict. Some of us have trained conflict as a negative. Yeah. But can conflict grow us stronger and be a positive thing? So it depends how you look at it, right?
So, are you both on the same team? Yes or no? You're on the same team. So, if Renee's on my team and she loses, who else loses? I lose. Can I win and she lose? No. Can she win and I lose? No. Either we win together or we lose together. You get what I'm saying? Because often when we watch like a hockey game or something, someone like hit him. Oh, hit him back, right? Fight, right? And we think somehow that by doing the hit him back, we think that somehow that's going to resolve and it's going to get rid of the anger. No, it actually makes it worse, right? So we think, oh, if I just get it out. No, you just getting it out like that didn't solve anything. It made it worse. So how can we have a softened startup where you own it, but you don't put the other person down and you realize, hey, you are my best friend. I love you. I'm here for you. I know you. I know what's going on here. And I want to understand you. And I will never, ever attack you, right? You're not the soccer ball. The problem is, don't kick your partner. Kick the problem, okay? So keeping that in mind, this is not an easy thing that we're asking. So there's a formula, and think through it. We'll practice a few more times tomorrow. Good.
Here's a Bible verse that is one of my favorite. James 1, verses 19 to 20. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So first it's saying, let every man be swift to hear. How many ears do we have? 2. How many mouths? Just 1. So we really need to practice to listen with our hearts, right? Really paying attention and listening, and then slow to speak and slow to anger.
Jesus says, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So in other words, I always think of it as you're pouring water into a bucket, and then what comes out is an overflow of what's inside. And so that's why sometimes it hurts us when someone says something, because we think, oh, there's probably a lot more inside. And if they're saying good things all the time, there's a lot more of that inside too. So you want what's coming out to be a reflection of what's inside. And so the thoughts, the conversation, right? What are you telling yourself? What is the self-talk that's going on in your head about your partner, about your circumstances, about yourself? Telling yourself the truth about the relationship and seeing a positive perspective and asking the Lord, praying, not praying about the problem, but praying the answer. So you're praying solution-centered prayers. And when you're doing solution-centered prayers, you're focusing on the solution. So I could in my prayers say, Lord, why is my life so terrible and it's all bad, and just going through all this negative perspective. Or you could say, Lord, I thank you. I'm going through this difficulty, but I also know that you have a solution. And then claiming those solutions. So putting your perspective and praying the answer and not the problem. And then finally, here's a prayer, and it's in Psalm 19, verse 14.
Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable and pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my firm, immovable rock and my redeemer.
Can God do that for you? Yes, he can, right? But to change your words in your mouth, the meditations of your heart be pleasing in his sight, and then that comes out. So, okay, take a moment to pray with someone who's next to you, a partner, a friend, family member, someone else, okay, before we close off.
All right. We have a book to give away, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. Did you know that statistically, the honeymoon stage ends 2 or 3 years into marriage? And that's when the real work starts. So, is there anyone who has been married for 3 years or less?
3 years or less. Sergey and Angelica.
Ah,
over
okay.
here. There we go.
That's the book for you. So, in that book,
There you go. You'll enjoy that.
you can read the chapters, and then there's some activities to do, some work to do, some conversations to have. So it's a great book.
What's the date of your anniversary? When is your anniversary? What's the date? May 14th.
It's coming up here. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Very close to 3
Yes.
years.
Did you also know that usually couples wait 6 to 7 years to seek help within their marriage? And some never do. So they live as lone silos in their marriage for years to come, and some choose to end it. And so we're always happy when we get a call of a couple seeking coaching. We do relationship coaching. And this week, there are couples that are Christians that have marriages that are falling apart. And we usually ask couples at the very beginning in our first session, 0 out of 10, 10 being the most connected. How connected are you? How emotionally connected are you? So we'll ask the husband, then we'll ask the wife. So usually it's the women that have a lower score than the men. Isn't that right? Yeah.
It is, because sometimes men don't understand that the women need an emotional connection, and we've never been taught to talk about our feelings or emotions. So tomorrow we're going to make you uncomfortable. We're going to talk, men, we're going to talk about emotions and connections and what a woman really needs. Because we think it's fine. Oh, that's a 7 out of 10. Yeah, that's good. And the wife will say, well, I think it's a 2. And the husband says, well, what do you mean it's a 2? What do you? I can't believe it. I mean, I'm I go to work every day. I provide for you. You got a beautiful home, a nice kid. What more do you need?
I need you and your heart.
My heart.
Give me your heart.
Heart? What is my heart? It got to do with anything?
Here, can I massage it and soften it?
Heart disease.
Yeah. So, it's just amazing. And then after, 8 to 12 sessions, we'll ask them the same question. And they've been doing a lot of what we're going to teach you this weekend, but we dig a little deeper when we do the coaching. And they'll say, 7, 8, 9 out of 10. And the reason is because they're practicing the soft startup. They're practicing how to express what they're feeling, what they're needing. We were just talking when you were discussing here, how do we put the we into this, in this process of I appreciate, I feel, I need? And I said, how we do it is by expressing what we feel and what we need. When we know what each other needs and we act on it, that's what makes we, doesn't it? Because if we don't know, then it's just we're those separate silos in our marriage. But as soon as we start to understand each other's needs and we start acting on them, that's when we happens in the relationship instead of just me. Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing. So we thank you, for hanging out with us tonight and just participating and sharing in the scenarios and the conversation. So if we were to ask you, what was your takeaway tonight? What would be a takeaway that you're going to take with you tonight?
What stood out for us, takeaway, is was the word there, friendship. Is I think it's very important. It's when the talking gets tough and whatnot. It's nice to have that friendship awaits in between. We have breaks and we can laugh about things and come back.
Good.
Sometimes conversations can be really long and tedious and emotionally draining.
Yeah.
You have a friendship to go back to, and you guys, I agree on that thing.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else like to share? What was your takeaway?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah. Yeah.